I am NetMoverSitan, and before we get to Chapter 6, let's talk about the identities of the damned dozen who have gone through their unfinished business so far. Before we go over Ishmael's identities and how they diverged from the main version, let's go over the identities introduced in Chapter 5, involving Gregor, Rodion, Emil Sinclair and Yi Sang. Let's start with Twin Hook Pirates' first mate, Gregor. Gregor thought it a pain as he rested on the sofa that he was sitting on, resting on a cushion, lifting his legs and placing his leather boot-clad feet on the desk. As soon as he sat down, everyone was going through the contents of their pockets, getting out a variety of death sticks for him. He chose one of them, which a nervous pirate handed to him. He asked for a light, and a perceptive pirate had one ready, all to fuel his nicotine addiction. Gregor had gotten used to this treatment and let them light his death stick, and then breathed it in. Gregor liked that one, asking which port that came from. The nervous pirate told him that it was found from, one of the guests, offering to find out where they got it from. Gregor told them that it wouldn't be necessary. It might give them heart attacks. That one probably gets old anyway. They understood. He flicked the ashes towards one of the other pirates who used their hands as an ashtray. He looked at his crew and it was time for the morning assembly, asking about their side jobs, wanting to hear the reports. The nervous pirates told them that the mermaid perfume department had captured a new species of mermaid, and then each of the crew went over their respective departments, which included the sales figures of mermaid perfume, ice cream, and other things. A bunch of numbers and statistics, which Gregor summed up with, "It's all." The others were hesitant to confirm this, and this annoyed Gregor. He wasn't trying to blame anyone there, as they're not their main moneymaker anyway. As for the actual business, he was asking how their guests were doing. The handy pirates told him that they currently have 6 guests in their lodgings, including the one that they snagged recently. Gregor asked how many customers did they have, those looking to get them back. The handy pirates told him that they currently have 2 in active negotiation. One of them was pretty loaded and came from one of the nests. This was good news to Gregor. The handy pirate said that there was one thing of note from one of their guests. One that was sent from some company, apparently a team leader, believing that they can really milk that one dry. Gregor saw that one as a catch. The handy pirate saw him as a bit green, but that's not much of a concern. Gregor saw this as good work. He apologized for the trouble, having to listen to the first mate in the captain's absence. The pirates didn't think it sucked at all. Apparently, Captain Hook used to be more reliable. Well, he's certainly more reliable when they're sailing. When they're docked, he's drinking fairy wine. Absinthe. Gregor was hard to determine if he was joking or serious. The others were hesitant to respond to this because of that. They were rigid for a reason. It's why he's the first mate of the Twin Hook Pirates, even though he's casual and laid back. He remarks on his latest target, who was screaming in terror. Gregor told them to not freak out now. If they thrashed about too much, he might slip and take their head off. So they shouldn't blame him if that happens. This made the target quiet. Gregor then went on to explain to the new guest that his pistol, that can make a hole in their head, telling them to say hello to his little friend. Thankfully in a more restrained way than Tony Montana, and not just because the ethics law and taxes make that weapon expensive to keep. He also warned against nodding their head too hard, as that could trigger the firing mechanism. So he advised them to answer with a blink. They'll be their guest, asking if they have rich friends or family. The guest confirmed this. So Gregor told them to chill with them until their friends get there with the ransom. Play nice and they won't kill them. He asked them if they wanted eye drops because their eyes were too dry, seeing that they still had some fight in them. They said, No, not that. This made one of the pirates nervous, and this was what Gregor did to every new guest and in front of the crew. Likely to remind them of who was in charge while Captain Hook was out of it, who also knew of Gregor's talents, which was why he was in charge in the captain's absence. Nor did the captain mind how annoyed Gregor was. Not that he cared to find out. Well, not while he was drunk anyway. This version of Gregor likely diverged from the main version when he was never conscripted by the old G Corps, as he never had the biomimetic arm on him. Instead, he had a hook arm. And at some point, he found himself finding work with the Twin Hook Pirates, an affiliate of the Middle. He eventually ended up with the role as the first mate under Captain Hook, who dealt with business when the captain was drunk out of his. Yet he was still casual and laid back, while also hard to read. As for his pistol, that's more for psychological reasons, as due to the ethics law, firearms and ammo, they were ruinously expensive, so if he does use it, he would have to make sure that it's used for good reasons, such as killing someone that was being too difficult to be worth it, simply to prove to more valuable targets that they mean business, and other similar reasons, because even though the lethality of firearms was limited by law, much like flintlock pistols around the Regency period, as in around the time when the one who would become King George IV was ruling Britain. Flintlock pistols, they're quite lethal at point-blank range. Also, he switched roles with Smee here. I can imagine at best that Smee in this reality was with the damned a dozen. Either that, or she wasn't recruited, or didn't rise as far as she did due to Gregor being the first mate. Well, regardless, he's likely to have a near miss with the damned dozen, considering that his crew have found that world's version of pilots. Also, one other thing that didn't change was his addiction to nicotine. Next we have Kurokumo clan Captain Gregor. At an izakaya, Kurokumo Captain Gregor was drunk out of his believing That what's cool about alcohol is that it makes people honest. It kills your liver, makes you sloppy, but it has its uses. If you're part of a syndicate, if you last that long, you get underlings. Yes, you get underlings. 3 to 4 underlings is easily manageable. He can manage them and figure them out after chatting and working with them a few times, but 10 or more is harder to manage. He sees his subordinates as his eyes and ears, hands and feet. Alcohol is to reduce the risk of disloyalty and mess everything up, which annoys him as he has to remain hands-on. Yes, this is how alcohol is useful to him, as he says he acts like he's just drunk a whole barrel to make them think that he's a brainless drunk. Especially the new recruits that have never seen him sober. That's when they start to let things slip. Let him know who they really are. Yes. Telling one of his subordinates to pour him some sake. His loyal underling, obviously used to this, advised that he saves the speech for when the recruits aren't around. As in, the ones that are around him. Honestly, this Gregor is bad enough sober. Gregor, not realizing that they're there, having heard his slurring rant for 30 minutes. His face flat against the table all that time. It was unclear if he registered that face as he continued to mumble at his loyal underling who was sitting next to him, one that had a lot of patience. He tried to salvage this by announcing to the others, who acknowledged him, just because Gregor was out of his skull, it didn't mean that he was some common drunkard, demanding that they answer. They confirmed that they know he isn't. Gregor was seemingly embarrassed at this, telling them to shut up, and telling him to pour some sake. His loyal subordinate's effort to bring back some degree of dignity to that gathering failed miserably, by the casual demeanour of Gregor, annoyed by the lack of him acting with any gravitas. Asking for that is asking a lot from Gregor, who holds drinking parties every day. Well, it's a miracle he's still alive. This didn't worry the loyal underling. Gregor got the job done, regardless of how he acted. As he got serious when it mattered, his loyal underling knew that very well. He's been around him for long enough. Apparently he had a bizarre power to get over any hangover or drunkenness, with a single roar. Each time he was assigned a job, he'd stumble over, roar, and he'd be sober without any hangover. Gregor announced to the others, if they're ready to teach those hobos that dare to encroach on their territory a lesson. His loyal underling confirmed that. They've all been whetting their blades in preparation for that very day. Those blade lineage. The previously mentioned hobos were a thorn in their backsides, and not just to the patriarch, the leader of the Kurokuma clan. Those there appear to be the equivalent of a capo in the eyes of the fun, since the sotocapo is above the patriarch, which would likely be the matriarch if the one leading the Kurokuma clan is female. I'm not sure about if their gender-based bias is in the Kurokuma clan or not, but it's unlikely as it's hinted that when it comes to sexual orientation in the city, they're quite open-minded about that, at least compared to how it is today. Anyway, Gregor didn't see what the patriarch hated as any of his business, but he wants to test their mettle, see what they're made of. He downed his sake in one gulp and sighed, complaining that the backstreet swordsmen rarely ever swing their swords for the love of it, asking if his loyal underling is the same. He learned how to swing that thing around just so that he can strut about, puff chest and all, scare some people, make some cash. The loyal underling denied this. This didn't impress Gregor, seeing that the Kurokuma clan has a lack of those who are serious about the way of the blade. He heard that their predecessors in the Kurokuma clan used to train in a real martial arts style. Many of them. Well, he saw how they are now a joke. He was annoyed that those who were serious about the blade got tired of working for the thumb, which was why they all left to make their own dojos, asking if he's wrong. Gregor, those are dangerous words. It's ill-advised to insult the thumb like that, as they've been known to remove body parts to those who do that. His loyal underling was worried that he was talking about that, worrying that they might catch wind of this. And Gregor was aware of this, which is why the Kurokuma clan is in so... well, it's so much in the right now. The has become sentient and is singing in an operatic style. The Kurokuma clan is making peanuts by comparison, doing whatever the thumb tells them to do, fighting whoever they tell them to fight. He joined too late for all the fun. According to the loyal underling, the Kurokuma clan isn't a dojo. There are syndicates and fixer officers for that kind of. Gregor asked if he should just leave everything that he's built up there just to be a rookie again somewhere else. He had high expectations for the coming battle, believing that this encounter would be special. It's why he's in a good mood, meaning what he was saying. He loved wielding the blade, which led him to join the Kurokuma clan. He was disappointed to find out that not many shared his passion. This passion was what led him to become a captain of the Kurokuma clan. One of the best for the upcoming strife. One of the many battles that occur in the backstreets. A mini-gang war. It's why he was shown proper respect, despite him looking a fool a lot of the time. Even the loyal underling laughed to himself at this. He intended to restore Gregor's shattered dignity among the others fully, as he didn't deserve that derision. He was truly an impressive swordsman. Gregor demanded his drink. The loyal underling got him one. Then, on the day of the strife, Gregor, along with Rodion and Ryushu, were with the others, facing off against the blade lineage with noticeable tension between them. Blood and flesh shall soon litter the alleyway. Gregor warned them that the one with the bamboo hat was the one to most watch out for. He had sobered up and had a commanding voice at this time. Rodion saw that one. Ryushu was impressed by him. His sword had seen much blood, and his eyes were that of a blade fiend. This made the others nervous. Gregor was counting on that. They needed to steer clear of him. He'll deal with the Hat Man himself. Blade fiend or blunder fiend, it matters not. Yelling at them to split the clouds! Unsheathing his blade, the strife began. Clearly, this version of Gregor found a place in the Kurokuma clan, a thumb affiliate, a finger that's a stickler to protocol. Clearly, he committed a severe enough breach of protocol to require one of his eyes to be removed, as that eye patch wasn't entirely for show. Possibly because he talked back at one point. Considering that Seo, another captain of the Kurokuma clan, ordered two that was unable to pay for protection money within the fallen nest of District 12 to have one of their eyes removed each, because they complained about that. As for his right arm, it's likely a cybernetic one that's likely made with swordplay in mind when it was fitted on him. This version was also a blood knight, one that took the way of the sword seriously, which was how he was recruited into the Kurokuma clan. He was also an alcoholic who drank ridiculous amounts of alcohol. Yes. It's clear that at some point he committed a breach of protocol. Either he talked back to a superior at one point, or even complained in front of a superior at one point, either within the Kurokuma clan or to one that was directly affiliated to the thumb. Well, he certainly wasn't abducted by the old G-Corp and conscripted into its army. He likely was part of some unaffiliated syndicate before he was a part of the Kurokuma clan, as he had time to become proficient with the blade. He was serious when he needed to be, and the more familiar, friendly and laid-back Gregor we know, when he doesn't need to be so serious. As for how he was able to shake off intoxication, perhaps some form of augmentation that detoxifies him when he has a surge of adrenaline, such as from when he roared, as that's the only explanation that I can think of that would make sense as to how he can get sober quickly without a hangover. Right, that's all of Gregor's Season 3 Identities covered. Now for New Association South Section 4 Director, Rodion. Rodia and Ishii, as the former referred to her as, was in more casual Lu Association attire, which is red hoodies with the Lu Association emblem on it. Rodia's was unzipped and Ishmael's was zipped. Rodia beckoned Ishmael that way with a tone of impatience. Ishmael told the director that they've been running from one restaurant to another for the last 4 hours. Rodia told her to not call her director, to call her Rodia, seeing this as giving her the cold shoulder. More like she's being professional. All Ishmael could manage is Rodion. Rodia saw this as an improvement, although as far as Ishmael was concerned, this was just to get Rodia off her back. She then produced a snack from one of the paper bags and put it in her mouth. Likely a sandwich from Ham Ham Pang Pang based on what it looked like. Apparently this was a gastro-adventure, or seeking out food and drinks, and all that goes with it, which based on the rows of shopping bags and food wrappings hanging from her arms, this has been going on for a good while. Rodia then said, "More," Ishmael disapproving of her talking with her mouth full. She then ate what was in her mouth before speaking again, asking how long Ishmael was going to be doing that. This made her stop dead in her tracks, hands deep in her pockets, and exhaled with loud and audible irritation, along with glaring at Rodion. Ishmael commented that she stopped at that corner's ham ham pang pang for their time-limited dumplings, picking up a big pack of 20 freshly fried benbosha, or fried shrimp or prawn toast, which is Cantonese dim sum originating from Hong Kong, which is basically minced shrimp paste that's baked or deep fried, served on triangles of bread. Rodion then asked green grapes, tangerines, or strawberries. Rodion talks about this quietly and casually as Ishmael was about to go on a rant. All this served was to make Ishmael confused. Rodion wanted her to pick one, specifically what was in the white paper bag. Ishmael was not amused by Rodion. She thought that she was bribing her with food. Rodion knew all along that she was watching that bag of tanghulu, a Chinese snack that's basically rock sugar-coated fruits on a bamboo skewer. Ishmael couldn't deny that. Rodion was even willing to let her get the first one, even offering to stop at the beef noodle bowl place that she frequents later. Ishmael decided to take the tangerine tanghulu, and Rodion handed it to her. She was one that had the wits that could be relied upon to appease the others in her section, both in social situations and other more contentious situations that would have risked fights breaking out under a less capable director. She was able to calm things down between the members of Section 4, considering that the Lu Association was known to be more family-like, at least by association standards. It's why they tended to assign directorial positions to those like her, even though they fall short slightly behind directors of other associations, who are picked solely for combat prowess. But she wasn't just picked for her sociable nature. Later, in the more typical Lu Association uniform, she was in battle. She was standing alone, facing off against the leader of a syndicate, intending to impale him with the tip of her open hand. The lackeys of that syndicate leader wouldn't get in her way, and the other Lu fixers were shaping the battlefield as per her orders to ensure that she got a one-on-one fight against the syndicate leader. Ryushu said TAD. Time and damage? Not sure about that one. Ishmael told Director to not worry about the lackeys. They're handling them, as they usually do. Rodion told her to call her by her name. Well, she's not doing that because they're basically on the clock, aren't they? So it wouldn't be appropriate. This didn't distract her from her fight, admitting that if they're going to call her that, she had to pull her own weight. She struck the leader's solar plexus, which was weakened after a series of burning strikes with the tip of her fingers, which clearly pierced right through his torso, killing them. She taunted them by saying that their boss was dead, asking if they wanted to keep going. Sun Tzu was right, wouldn't you say? Now, the general is the bulwark of the state. If the bulwark is complete at all points, the state shall be strong. If the bulwark is defective, the state shall be weak. Seeing that this was a large-scale battle with multiple combatants and their leader was dead, Morale was crushed. They slowly backed away. Then they scattered and fled. Another job done. This was standard procedure for larger scale tasks. Hold down the enemy grunts, isolate the leader, and the director or an equivalent takes them on one by one. There was no plan B. If the director was defeated, then it was Section 4 that would have had it in that battle. Now, this is if that happens. But let's not get into that. We might find out when we look into a world where that does happen. While this version of Rodion wasn't taking her job entirely seriously, she does get the teamwork aspect of the Lu Association. Her sociability makes her ideal for that association, where the directors of that association are picked for a mix of combat proficiency and social skills, as opposed to just combat proficiency, where they're less likely to leave their own for dead and are willing to follow their director to whatever situation that they've been assigned to deal with. Well, this certainly explains why Lu Association South Section 1 followed Xiao into the library and fought alongside her, even though it was a suicide mission, and the fact that she resigned to stop them from going down with her if it went badly for her. This kind of dedication was usually more likely seen within the fingers. Well, mostly the thumb and the middle. This makes the Lu Association stand out among them. Certainly, based on what we know about the Fixer Association so far, as they are vulnerable to corruption. One example of this is Thelma, the director of Shi Association South Section 1, making a deal with Argalia, the Blue Reverberation, to save his own worthless hide from being investigated. One of those investigating him was Yujin, the director of Shi South Section 2. One of those that had actual integrity. And they're also vulnerable to cowardice, as in, there have been known examples of association fixers leaving their own for dead. And there are those that are regular fixers that do that as well, although they're more likely to do so. And in those cases it's for simple greed, such as Hopkins. One thing that hasn't changed with this version of Rodion is that she thinks with her stomach, considering that she goes on regular trips to consume large amounts of food, often with others of that section. Yes, this would be confusing to those recently promoted to Section 4. Yes, this behaviour was likely influenced by her life in District 25, where food was not abundant and many were in abject poverty. Where the divergence point in this case was, well, instead of being recruited by the damned dozen, after her actions resulted in the mass punishment killing by the hands of the middle, she became a fixer and was eventually recruited into the Lu Association, where she rose to be the director of Section 4. Yes, that's the most likely divergence point. Right. Anyone else with, well, any other variant with Rodion? For now, no. Next will be Emil Sinclair and Yi Sang's Identities for Season 3. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!